Yeah,
Well, right
and
about.
while you got the success to pick up on like the conversation and not be lost, the Monica herself, if I were to give her a demeanor, it would be defeated. Her shoulders are slumped and her head is kind of hanging low, and she seems as though she almost looks like a child who's been caught doing something they're not supposed to be doing. Um, is kind of the impression that you would get. Uh, and I think that after he says that, and you don't respond, he says,
Well,
"Be not afraid."
he hasn't responded yet, but I was just asking because she was gonna say something.
Yeah, go ahead then.
So he then starts in and he asks, "Have you been listening to the news lately?"
I think he just kind of stares blankly at you, waiting for you to continue.
That wasn't a rhetorical question.
Yes, I keep up on current events.
So you would know that recently a official was deceased by chance.
Yes, I have heard about that. It is a terrible thing, murder.
It is. Well, let's just say I know a few things that would keep me inclined if you were to take keep me inclined that anyone that wished someone to pay would pay very brutally, to say the least.
Yeah, and I think again his impassive look pierces you, and he says, "I do not wish to involve you with this."
Well, I am involved myself with this. I understand that whatever quarrels that you have with her are also kind of my business right now.
Very well. Then you will come as well.
Well, I drag myself to something, and the thing is, like, he also realizes he's like digging himself deeper, but it's just like, what if this is one of the people that was hunting her down? So he's just like, he can't let her and the people hunting them down go, so he decides to join them. So he says, "Yes, I would very much appreciate that."
Very well. Then do me a favor. Please allow my assistant to enter. She is waiting at the door.
Well, I didn't say anything about not letting people in. This is not really my home. If Monica is okay with it,
Uh,
she looks at her
sh-
for guidance,
yeah,
even though she
she
realizes
just kind
that.
of like nods her head yes.
Okay, he nods after that.
So you head over to the door, and as you open it up, tall, thin woman, human, female, um, enters in, and she's wearing kind of tight-fitting clothing, and she has long brown hair with a couple of streaks, like almost like highlights in them, that go all the way down. They come down to about her mid back. Um, and she enters in, and you can see her demeanor is much different from that of her. He called her his assistant, but her demeanor is very much different from his in the fact that she appears to have a bit of a unsettled kind of presence as she enters in, almost as if someone were annoyed or perhaps you can kind of feel those waves of rolling off of her, and yeah,
Okay.
and as she walks in, you hear her. She walks up, like she kind of storms past you. It doesn't even give you like a second glance, and walks over to Bick. And as you're closing the door, you hear her begin to like whisper. But before she begins to whisper, she says something, and I want you to roll a perception check to see if you pick up on what she says before the whisper dies down to a point you can't hear it.
So,
It's just gonna be an average
uncanny
check.
senses?
Yeah, you can uncanny senses. I'll add the blue dice there.
I didn't think it said one time. I think it said every single time, right? It's not like a one-time thing.
I'm not
I think.
100% sure. I'll look it up. But go ahead and roll perception.
Uncanny. Yeah. From every single time I roll a perception check.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure. Ooh.
Cool.
That's a mighty fine roll there, boy.
So, I think the 3 threat here, I'm going to use it. Don't worry about adding anything else. The success is you hear what she says, and I will allow you to hear that before you figure out what you may want to do with your triumph.
Okay.
But she walks up to Bick, and she says, "Master, we need to be going. They will be here soon. I can sense them."
And with my triumph, I know that maybe at this point, since I already heard master, it's just like for a second. The thing is, when someone mentions master, it's like a teacher of sorts. But then again, my triumph would be maybe for like a split second or for enough amount of time, he feels their like essence or their like presence in the force.
So
Just
when the woman says I can see them, there's a pulse of energy that you feel coming from her when she says she can see them. And you recognize it to be someone who uses the force.
There's so many force users lately.
There's so
Know,
many
it's like everywhere we go, there's fucking force users.
Yep. Anyway.
And none of them
what do you do, Dash?
For now, he mentions nothing because I don't know. Maybe what if they're like, what if this guy is too nosy to be kept with us?
Sure.
So he kind of like keeps that in regard and just like stands where she is.
Yeah. So the 3 threat here that I was going to use is when that happens, when you identify what's going on, you're a little bit slow in hiding your initial surprise. And I think Bick, he looks at you and his eyes narrow a little bit and he says, see. Well, perhaps you will become useful.
You're being captured. For real this time.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean. Deception check, please.
No, you already rolled the 3 threat. I think he's got you on this one. And I think he says, like, when you say that, he just holds up a hand and he says, "Fear not. As you said, we do not wish to harm you. You are not involved with this, but since you have decided to embroil yourself in it, well, I will give you a choice. You can leave now, never speak of this again, allow us to do our duty, or you can come with us. Be mindful of what you say and do, perhaps to be released at a later time. Judging by the fact that you clearly harbor some emotional feelings for this woman, I would say you would be apt to pick the latter. But I also find it hard to believe that a individual such as yourself acts alone."
Rude.
Well, you don't know that for sure, now do you?
Your glibness will not get you far with me, and even less far than with my apprentice.
Well, guys, Dash got captured. He's a damsel in distress.
Now, damsels have eyebrows.
Do you say anything to that, Dash?
You look surprised.
Like he regards what he they have noticed and what they've also noticed. Just like this is a dangerous territory that he could that he doesn't know what would like lead to, but he says, "Let this. I know that you might have judged me, but let me just say, I could be more than what you think." I would say he would for a second think of saying old timer, but he held his tongue, but just regard the like don't act like you know me kind of
Yeah,
type of thing.
yeah, sure. And I think that you see the apprentice. Her hand slides underneath her cloak for a moment, and you see she takes a step forward. But Bick holds out an arm to stop her. And for the first time, you see him express an emotion. And he smiles and he says, "Yes, I believe that you can. With training, of course."
God.
Dash doesn't respond well because we're trying to train him.
So the thing is now, I don't know if he's actually realized if he's actually have rejections or like approvals, but his reaction would be like he lets out a sigh as he buries his hands, as he like puts a hand on his face to just think. He says, "Look, if you're referring to what you think you're referring, I just fly ships. I'm not some hero. I'm not some villain. I just know ships. So no, I'm not interested in ruling the galaxy or whatever the."
Yeah, and I think again his smile grows even larger, and he says, "Some of the greatest Jedi only flew ships at first."
Damn it, it's true.
Yeah, it's got.
You stereotype.
Yeah, and I think he says, "The choice is yours. Will you come with us, or will you leave and never speak of this again? You will only get this once."
Do you realize that if I'm coming with you, and it's not for you?
Yeah, and I
Jedi too.
specifically did, yes.
Does anybody actually know what that is? Like,
Dash does. He was like, him and Zian had a long conversation about that.
Yep, we did.
okay.
So again, seeing that as a tentative answer, he says, "Very well." And he turns to his apprentice and he says, "Starsha, keep an eye on him. If he acts in any way that may be harmful, do what you must." Yeah, and she gives a nod, and she turns to you and focuses intently about your features, Dash. You can tell she is either evaluating or reading into something that you may or may not understand.
Checking you out.
Not in the same way that Monica did.
No,
Yeah, and she kind of nods, and you see that she crosses her arms, but her right arm is still like tucked inside of her coat, and she just watches you for the remainder of the time that you spend there.
Okay. I decide to stay. Foolishly or heroically.
So,
take your pick.
So, I think that we proceed to the next day with the rest of the crew. So Mouse and Kin and Zian and Jax, you all awaken the next day. No one has heard from Dash, but again, we've determined that that's not necessarily strange, although it is probably bordering on strange, because one thing, if Dash may or may not be antisocial, he doesn't like to be away from his ship too long. So
He got a new ship, one with a sound system.
right, yeah, maybe he left you for a new ship. And so I think that that there may be some genuine concern there now, from people who are more attentive to that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But Jax, you want to do a shopping trip, right? You want to go find some stuff.
Yeah, so previously when we'd gone try, I had found a place that sells I think it was a black market mod shop. I'm not sure if I did a check and I got a triumph on it and I found an awesome shop.
Yeah, because you wanted to find the exact thing that you wanted, and the guy definitely implied that there was special equipment if you wanted to look at it.
Yeah, because the thing I found at the police station doesn't really work for Jax. It's a bit too subtle for his brand of shooting, and Mouse can't use it either because she doesn't have any hard points available. So his idea is to try and sell it to buy something else.
Yeah, absolutely. So, who is going with Jax on this particular shopping trip?
I would actually like to work on our robot. Our droid that I'm working on.
Okay.
If we're taking a side thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to work on
yeah, if we're doing side stuff, I'd probably go back to the library.
Okay.
Will help with.
I need to do some research on crate dragons.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was the other. Oh, I forgot to actually put that in the recap. That was the other thing that was interesting, right? Is there might be the possibility of going and hunting some crate dragons.
Yeah.
To find a pearl, perhaps.
I thought, our plan is to try and use this whole Druckenwell experience to garner some influence with Arcanus to use that to go to Tatooine to get permission to hunt a crate dragon.
Yeah, something like that.
There was definitely that conversation had. Yep.
Cool. So I think the way Jax would look at this situation is it's weird that Dash isn't back yet, but Jax naturally isn't someone who's gonna mother anyone. So he'd go about his business, and if Dash was not back upon him getting back with his business, what?
That's not true. You've been mothering Mouse all the time.
I would teach Mouse how to shoot, and I grabbed Mouse out of danger in a firefight, but I wouldn't seek out Mouse.
Yeah.
Not mothering, that's fathering.
So I don't think Jax would be particularly worried yet.
Okay.
So,
Yet.
Perhaps
soon.
Yeah. If Jax comes back from his trip and there's still been no word from Dash, he would start to be we should look into this.
Okay. All right. So Zian's going back to the library to research some crate dragons, which there are well documented cases of that. That will not be as hard as the previous things you've been researching. And then we move on to Kin. Are you helping Mouse since Mouse is working on the droid? Yeah, absolutely.
Helping.
By helping, you're doing that thing where you're hovering behind Mouse, trying to.
Maybe we should make it like a dog and have 4 legs.
That's my heavy lifter.
Yeah.
He'll fucking lift the chassis and things like that.
I'll hold things steady once you.
Yeah. So I want to start there.
Adds a black dice and a blue dice.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I want to start there with Mouse and Kin. So you're working on this now. You have basically all of the parts you need to at least make a rudimentary droid.
We've been working on it. I only have to get 3 more quotation marks
successes, right? Yeah, absolutely.
So we have the parts. I think to finish the entire droid, it's just a matter of
the time working on it, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a good downtime opportunity to do that. And you've kind of moved past the hard part. The hard part was finding a droid brain that was still intact and operational. And you had to kind of maneuver through that, but I think you have one now, if I remember correctly. That will at least be a start, right? So why don't you just go ahead? I'm gonna make you roll an average mechanics check, just to make sure you don't screw anything up too badly.
Sure thing.
Should be pretty easy for the likes of you, I would think.
This. Okay. It's mechanics.
Uh-huh.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the strain is obviously from Kin hovering over you.
Wow,
like-
I failed. Really?
Oh,
Oh no, those are successes.
no, those
I'm
are
sorry.
successes.
Oh, okay, I was like,
No,
That was
yeah, you
pretty bad in
succeed.
those.
Stupid
Purple.
mouse doesn't fail mechanics checks.
Yeah, it was a success. The strain here that you're gonna take though from that threat is obviously due to Kin like hovering over you and like you
Kin's-
know
Ken, come on, stop it.
I want to see.
exactly.
You'll see it when it's done.
Kin, just imagine in real life like when your kids are like trying to find out what you're doing. Yeah,
this
it's
is like when you
just
build
like that.
This is like when you build a toy during Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really good.
exactly like that. Yes. So eventually you connect all of the pieces, and I think that you have like a functioning droid body now. I think we determined that it is going to be a protocol droid, like a basic
It's
3PO model, right? Probably.
it's I have the name. Let me check the notes.
C120.
Yeah, C120.
Yeah, C120 exactly.
And it's a protocol droid.
Yeah, CISO, right?
Yeah, CISO.
So yeah, you have the completed chassis essentially. So all that's left to do is really like the hard wiring. And so, Kin, at this point, you finally have like there's finally like a physical form to your desire in this moment.
I started asking Ken like what he wants out of it. Like, what do you want him to be like, or them to be like? I guess.
I
Like,
just want
I'm
to
not-
see what he is like.
Oh yeah.
So
Same.
just, I'll start hovering around, just looking at all the parts, lifting arms, and just really studying everything.
Do you think it'll be funny? We could use more funny people around here. Like
Yeah, we should give him eyebrows.
Zian never tells a joke. Like fucking Dash is grumpy all the time. You know, Jax is funny sometimes, but he's always like working on his guns and stuff. He doesn't really have time for jokes. It's just not fun.
Our protocol droids funny.
I mean, maybe.
Personally,
No, not really. Not usually. They're usually like super polite.
we could do with some politeness as well.
I guess.
Sounds polite. You can't knock him down for that.
Zian's really polite, but
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, I guess we could. I'm not gonna knock it.
So, are we? How far are we away from this functioning? Actually,
I
turning
have
on?
3 points out of 5. So
yeah, so
I'm
3
points
successes out
away.
of 5. So
Alright.
2 more like downtimes that you take.
All right,
the-
so we need like a working power source. Or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Like a power source and basically like the testing phase, right, where you make sure everything's working properly and get all the bugs out of the code, right? Those are the 2 like remaining things to be done. Which basically means you have all the parts, right? It's probably just like figuring a way to. You probably have a power source, just figuring out a way to hook it all up. So it's basically just time now, and you know, Mouse not rolling abysmally for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Cool.
thought I rolled really bad. I was so ready to be done.
No, you
and-
rolled really good actually.
Anyway. Yeah, that was my downtime.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. So Jax, you go and you're gonna go to that mod shop guy, and I believe it was wasn't a Troidarian that ran the shop.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was a little Troidarian dude.
Yeah.
And he's flying around. He recognizes you immediately because he's a merchant and his job is to recognize his regulars. And he says, "Ah, Jax, how you been?
I've been good, thanks.
What can I do for you today?"
Found something in my adventures that I thought you might find interesting.
Ah, interesting. Yes. Perhaps looking to barter?
Yes, indeed.
Very well. Well, show me. What is it that you have?
It's restricted. Is there somewhere more private we can go?
Ah, as part of special stock. Yes, yes, come with me. We will enter into the back room.
Into the back room.
Yeah, and he like pulls a flap aside so you can enter into like imagine like a smoky back room poker area with like a table that's kind of set around and like there's that dim lighting that doesn't really illuminate all the corners. There's probably like a couple of aliens just like sitting at the table that are like maybe they have some drinks or maybe they're like swapping some like weapon mods or maybe they're actually like working on stuff like in the back. And he takes you back there and the Tradarian he pushes like a little buzzer on the wall and you hear a bzzz, and you see like descending from the ceiling there appears to be like a rack of very clearly like black market stuff that like descends downward. And as it kind of rattles into place a little bit, he says, "All right, let's see what you got."
So I'll show him the blaster energy dampener.
Yeah, it's an energy dampener. It's basically a silencer. So he holds it up and he kind of gazes through it, and you see he pulls out like a little magnifying glass that holds it up to his face and kind of like looks at it and
he's doing the spiel. I know it's a spiel.
He's like rolling it around in his hand. He's looking through it. He's like, ah, yes, the rifling is quite excellent. In fact, I would have to say I've seen this before. Yes, I think I sold this quite a little bit ago. Well, it's interesting. Good for you, of course. That means that I know the exact value of a piece as rare as this. Although, less fortunate for the owner of this. Where did you find this?
You don't want to know.
Yes, like I said, less fortunate for the owner of this. Well, what were you looking for? Credits? An exchange of some sort?
What are my options?
Well,
Credits
take...
for an exchange of some sort.
No, but I want to know what kind of credits and what level of store credit he's going to give me.
Yeah, so he probably is going to, he probably says, well, a piece like this, retail goes for 750 credits. Obviously, I need to make my money off of it. So let's say I give you a little bit extra. How about 500 credits?
What about store credit? What'd you give me?
Well, if you find a piece of equivalent exchange, I guess I could part with it.
What is this, Full Metal Alchemist now?
Yes.
I say what I want something that's less valuable, but I want some like parts so I can mod things.
Drive a hard bargain. What were you looking for? Perhaps I can see if we have it in stock.
An electronic sighting system.
He goes, let me see. Let me look at the books here. So the electronic sighting system, when I said let me look at the books here, I'm actually serious. Let me look at the books here. Where's that one?
It's 500 it's 500 credits. I can look it up.
Is it in special modifications?
I don't remember, but I have it written down somewhere, and I could have kept it open, but I didn't think that far ahead.
Because I just want to look at it before I just give you stuff. I like to do that.
Where's my document?
Remote.
Here we go. It is Strongholds of Resistance, page 110.
The old Strongholds of Resistance.
Rarity 4, price 500, hard points required 1. Allows shooter to aim as an incidental once per round at short range, decreases the difficulty of perception checks to locate the shooter in low light conditions by 1.
Okay.
And you can mod it to add 1 accurate.
Right, after it's installed, you can mod it to have 1 accurate.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Resistance. There we go. That's what I was. All right. Wait. You said the blaster suppressor? That's what you're looking for?
No, No, the
electronic sighting system.
sighting.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so allows the shooter to aim as an incidental once per round at short range. Decrease the difficulty of perception checks to locate the shooter in low light conditions by 1. Cool. So that would essentially give you, if the target's at short range, it gives you 2 aims in a single turn. Seems good, as long as you don't use your other maneuver for anything.
No, you can do it as an incidental.
Right, but then you could also aim as your maneuver.
Oh yeah.
That's what I mean. Is you could,
Yes.
yeah, you could aim twice.
I thought you meant if you mod it because you got blue dice from the action.
No, yeah, you could technically aim twice in the same turn and still shoot. Okay, cool. Yeah, you know what? I think that you know, he probably says to you, yes, we have some in stock, but are you sure? This seems like this piece you are trying to give me is far more valuable than that.
No, I want this.
Is there something wrong with it, perhaps?
No, nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's for a subtle man, and I'm not a subtle man. But I don't just want that. I want that, and I want 200 credits worth of, like, parts.
Okay. All right. I think that he's actually suspicious of this a little bit. So why don't you roll me a negotiation check, just to see how much of the dealing he's gonna do with you. Now he's a Troidarian, and they're not easy to deal with. So it's gonna be average, but I'm adding a black dice because Troidarians are notoriously deceptive whenever they do business deals.
Can I add a blue dice because I'm trying to sell him something that he has sold before, so he's like he's seen it before.
I don't know.
Fair enough.
I think no on that one. I got you.
2 green dice here, so
let's see how you do. Hey, look at that.
Hey.
So take your strain here, and I think he after some back and forth, some haggling, right? He finally says, "All right. You've been a good customer, and I'm taking that on your word that this is an appropriate trade, and also under the understanding that you'll send anyone else that is looking for anything that they may need to me."
You're my main man.
Yes. All right. Well, it seems we have an accord, and he kind of hold out his little insectoid hand for you to shake.
Jax will make a big deal of spitting on his hand and then shaking that guy's hand.
Yeah, he kind of like looks at it. He kind of like disgustedly like pulls up his hand and then like wipes it off on his trousers, and he's like, very well, let's get some paperwork done. Yeah, and so you can have that 200 credits worth of modding parts and the electronic sight.
Ooh. And feeling quite chuffed with that, Jax would probably head back to the ship.
Alright, fantastic. So the last one we need to speak to, I believe, about their downtime activities, is Zian. So Zian, you head back to the library. Now, this poor girl is gonna think you're into her if you keep visiting her so often every day.
You know what? Maybe Zian might be into her.
Yeah.
Zian is. We're like not prequel era Jedi where Luke Skywalker era Jedi that are like, families are good. They make sense. Yeah. They make you stronger.
Right.
I never understood that part of the.
Yeah.
I think honestly, like if we're doing real talk, I think it honestly stemmed from the fact that the original Force users were the monks, right? Who still had those tenets, and they kind of were adopted by the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so you head back, and Unan. See, I remembered her name because we only played yesterday, and I didn't have a whole week to forget it. Unan is working, and her face lights up when you show up, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I was so worried you were pretty amazing yesterday when you were saving all of those poor police officers. It was really quite incredible. Did you need something? Can I help you find something, perhaps?"
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to find out more information on crate dragons. We're going from like this to this to this. She's probably all confused.
Yeah, and she's like, yes, of course. Great dragons. They are, as far as I'm aware, they're native to a planet called Tatooine. But I know that there have been sightings, at least, of varying species elements.
As far as I know, they're dragons.
Yeah, varying species, at least in slightly familial related in other worlds. It's estimated that they were probably transported either as stowaways aboard moisture farming ships, or perhaps sold as pets that then escaped when they grew too big. But yeah, yes. What else do you wish to know about them? I'm sure we can find some material here.
I just kind of, I want to find like maybe there's like a hollow journal of somebody who hunted a crate dragon, and maybe there's information on how to successfully track them, and how, if there's stuff to watch out for, and just get information for our upcoming adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely you could find some big game hunters journals, right? Because that's there's bounty hunters and there's big game hunters who specifically go out and hunt these crazy immense creatures, right? So I think that why don't you roll me a lore? This is gonna be Outer Rim.
Okay.
Obviously, the sale and deportation of crate dragons is not something that happens in the core worlds.
Okay.
It's gonna be Outer Rim. I'm gonna make it average, but I'm gonna give you an upgrade actually. For Unan's help with this. I think it's worth a little bit more than a blue dice.
All right.
Because this is her archives, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and roll.
Outer Rim, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not that you're not gonna find the information; it's that you have to find relevant information, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Go for it. Hey, that's a good roll.
Yeah.
Look at that. So I think in this case, 3 successes are going to mean 3 little tidbits of information here.
Okay.
So the first one is going to be everything she said about it is obviously true. How they are native to Tatooine, but they have been transported to other places via black market dealings, trading, stuff like that. But there is, I think that one big piece of information you get is that there is an event that is annual on Tatooine in which big game hunters from all over the galaxy travel there to hunt. It's called the Great Crate Dragon Hunt, right? Where they all will go out and the first one to bring back the scale of a crate dragon. Not even like, they don't even hunt for its head or anything like that. They actually just try and get a scale off of it. And it's been said that, you know, obviously being hunted and the creatures don't reproduce as often, they being hunted kind of is whittling down more and more. But to the point in which the Great Crate Dragon Hunt was put on hiatus for about a century. Until actually upcoming very soon. In fact, it's probably like a news article that you find, right? Upcoming very soon, they're going to have another Great Crate Dragon Hunt because there have been more spotted in the wilds now. Like the population has a resurgence lately. So it's being hosted by the governmental agency on Tatooine, which you know to be the Arcanus Syndicate. So even if you don't have the in with Arcanus, you might be able to go pay the entry fee and then do it through the Great Crate Dragon Hunt processes to have that sort of information, right? To at least be legal and not have to be hunted down by everything else.
What does it say the entry fee on there?
You know, it probably does. The entry fee is probably something like what's a fair price here? I think the entry fee is probably like 250 credits.
Okay.
But I think there are restrictions on like how many people and what you can do with it. So I think it says no more than like a 4-man team. But I think it also says that you can use any weapons or mechanical means at your disposal short of like vehicles, right? Besides transportation vehicles, right? You can use transportation vehicles, but you can't use a starship, right? And it specifically also says in there that droids don't count as members of a party.
Perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't know if you all know much about Tatooine, but droids do not count as people there. I'm just throwing it out. I'm just putting it out there, Ken, just in case. Just in case it becomes a problem. I want to forewarn you about it.
Most places are like that.
Yeah, basically everywhere outside of the ship is like that.
Can I also...
The ship are still suspect.
We just need to start a civil rights movement, that's all.
Casual civil rights movement.
Can I also do like a proper research with xenology to get information on the crate dragons themselves?
Yeah. Let me give you the other two points here, and then I'll let you do that as well.
I thought that was all of them. That's perfect.
No, that was the Great Crate Dragon Hunt. That's the first one. The second one here is, I think that you discover a journal, a log like you were looking for, and it probably details it. The first one leads into this one, so finding out that there's a new Great Crate Dragon Hunt occurring on Tatooine very shortly, and because it's Star Wars, it will be about the time you arrive there. Because there's another one, it kind of leads you into looking up like past logs. And you find a log of a Great Crate Dragon Hunt, probably, a couple hundred years ago, that was one of the only times where a Great Crate Dragon had actually been slain completely, and more than just the scale had been brought back, right? And the hunter who did so was named Angus Dyson. And
did he also go on to invent a series of vacuums?
He did not. So Angus Dyson, and he was a Rhodian male bounty hunter, and he joined the Great Crate Dragon Hunt not knowing anything. He had never been to Tatooine or anything like that. So it's really this source of information is really useful for you, because you all not knowing anything can learn a lot more from this particular log than other people who may know stuff. But he details kind of the movement patterns of the crate dragons. They're more nocturnal because of the general heat and temperature of Tatooine. Most things are more nocturnal. In addition, their favorite type of like food, or the favorite type of like prey to hunt, is banthas. He probably details in there as well about how one of the biggest difficulties was finding shelter for himself during the nights, because he said that the most dangerous thing wasn't even the crate dragon itself, but it was just Tatooine trying to kill him. Which is probably why a lot of hunters lose their lives during a crate dragon hunt, not because of the crate dragon themselves or any other enemies. It's probably Tatooine trying to kill them and sand people, right? Those are the two largest cause of deaths. And then he also details the fact that crate dragons, similar to the fantasy dragons of old, like to store a variety of like shiny or valuable looking objects. They're not necessarily valuable, but they're valuable looking. So he details how he actually tracked a dragon because he found a relic, like a destroyed ship, in which he could tell the crate dragon had gone through and kind of like harvested items from it that it enjoyed, and he could follow the trail from there. And that's how he got put on the trail in the very first place, until he eventually found it. So there you go. And then I think that the third thing here is that there have been a fair number of illegal crate dragon hunts in the past, and you find probably some record of the fact that in the Arcanus Age, the Arcanus Syndicate, when they came into power, is really when they started to like crack down on these illegal poaching rings, essentially, because anything that goes through Arcanus needs to be paid for with money, because that's just how Arcanus works. And so when they started to crack down on these, they gathered a lot of information about a lot of these different poachers and hunters who had detailed like track maps of where the crate dragons would hunt. And in fact, there's a variety of them that look not all that old. So I think that what this will give you mechanically is you will have a generalized area where there might be at least a cold trail to follow, based on your research, which will not be available to everyone else who hasn't done their research. So you don't have to scour the whole planet. You have a more centralized location to kind of start your search.
Perfect.
Without having to like roll for it, basically.
That sounds great.
Cool. So now you said you wanted to do a xenology roll, right?
Yeah.
Based on like the general makeup of these. Now, again, this is just xenology, so it's just going to be an average check, essentially, to just identify different pieces and parts.
Do I get the same upgrade from Unan's help?
I'll give you that. I'll give you that upgrade. That seems fair.
All right.
Hey, there you go. So you can reduce the strain, and the success here is crate dragons, as you would assume, are nigh indestructible. You know, their armor plating is thick enough that even if somebody were to use a starship, they still may not be able to penetrate it. So weak points that you get, obvious ones, are like eyes, mouth, neck area. Are obviously some of the more dangerous aspects. Its underbelly is slightly less armored, but you're not going to get through it with a blaster pistol. You're still going to need something a little bit more heavy duty. A lot of crate dragons that have been slain in the past have been slain with explosives, like large trap level explosives. But it seems like most of the time when a crate dragon dies, it is already dying, and somebody just comes and finishes it off. A live, healthy crate dragon is very rare. It's a very rare kill. However, the ones that do happen seem to be during the day when you trap them in their lairs. And in fact, there's probably a lot of reference to like collapsing the cave on them. You know, letting the stones do the work for you. But that's also runs a very high risk of not being able to recover anything afterwards. Yeah. And as far as other sorts of weaknesses, obviously they're very resistant to heat, and they only hunt and like move about at night, which means they're very resistant to like just general elements. But it does mention that their digestive system is actually not as robust as one might assume. It's commonly found that like some of the trails that they find, like how people get picked up on crate dragons, is they'll find like vomit or excrement from when a crate dragon gets sick from eating something it's not supposed to be eating. And that's usually kind of where people pick up on trails to start with. So it is a pretty major weakness. If you could, you know, maybe somehow convince a crate dragon to eat something bad, it might put it in a state where it could be dealt with appropriately.
Okay.
So there you go. There's your xenology check.
Perfect.
So during this whole period of time, while you're, you know, Unan and you are like studying, and occasionally she gets up to help other people who are visiting the archives. But again, this is not a very busy location. Drunkenwell doesn't have a whole lot of respect for the knowledge that exists here. So that being said, throughout the whole period of time, there are a couple of moments where Unan probably kind of pries a little bit. And I think that the first one she said, she's like, so what happened last night? Did you ever find out?
All I could find out was there was some sort of attack by those people in that ship.
Oh, that's terrible. I hope not too many people were hurt.
Looks like it was some sort of like crackdown, maybe drug related, hard to say, but I did the best I could. Hopefully, those people's recovery goes well.
Yes, indeed. And I have to ask. You've mentioned your friends before, but I never met them. What are they like?
He doesn't actually have friends. They're all imaginary.
Yeah, and you kind of get the impression that she's asking because she probably doesn't have a whole lot of friends.
I kind of well, first there's Jax. He's a bit of a loner, tough guy.
I don't know if I call him that.
Kind of like mercenary type. We've got Mouse. Mouse is a Deveronian scavenger techie. She's also got this crazy droid.
Ooh.
I don't have a droid. The droid is my friend.
He's my friend, not my property. What are you talking about?
And then we've got Dash, who's a pilot. He's a nice enough guy. He seems a little stressed out lately. Hopefully he works through whatever's stressing him out.
Mention his lack of eyebrows.
Lack of eyebrows.
Yeah, and I think she just kind of nods, and you see she kind of daydreams a little bit about like trying. You can tell she's trying to like picture these people in her head, right?
Yeah.
And she says, that sounds wonderful. And I have to ask. I mean, we've been doing all this research for the past couple of days. When do you think you all will be leaving?
I don't really know, but I'd imagine fairly soon.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll come see me before you leave, right?
Oh, definitely. You've been such a great help.
Oh, good. Well, we should probably get back to it. And she kind of like buries her face in the book again, or in the archive, the hololog that she's looking at.
Is she blushing?
She's a Twi'lek, so I think it's hard to tell.
Her brain tail's twitching.
Yeah. Are the tips of her head tails like twitching? Yeah, probably. But she's good at hiding that sort of thing.
Perception check.
Perception check. Figure out where they're pointing.
That, however, is probably a great place to take our break for the day.
Yay.
So, why don't we take our break? We're taking it a little bit later because we started a few minutes late, but that's okay. Why don't we be back at 20 after? Take a good 10-minute break there.
That's fine.
Sounds good.
Right. We'll see everybody then, and then maybe you guys will have a chance to go save Dash.
First,
Hey.
I want my gun.
After you mod your gun.
First things first. Next
Alright,
thing is dash.
I'm gonna mute myself and talk to you guys in a second. Alright, everybody, we're gonna take a quick little break. Be back in just a second. Stay tuned.